It's grabbing the data and putting into input line, one line at a time, till the input.read line returns a null, and we are grabbing the data and displaying it out on the console. What I would like you guys to do here is, first of all, save this example as Java URL 3, for example. So save it as Java URL 3. Next, what I would like you guys to do is, instead of displaying the output to the console, stream this data into a file of HTML type. So at the end of running the program, instead of displaying the output on the console, your output will say, okay, all data transferred to an HTML file. And then we should be able to open that HTML file on the local computer. Does everybody follow that? What you got to do? Write the data to a file of HTML type. So just like buffered reader, you can have buffered writer. Now, buffered reader will tap into an input stream reader. On the contrary, this, because we are writing to a file, the buffer writer will tap into a file writer, which could then be an HTML file such as home.html. Then on line number 25, where I left an empty line, actually, in fact, the system.out, I should move this outside of the loop, not in the loop. So inside the loop, what you will do is you will use this output object dot write, and whatever you are reading in the input line, you just write to that object. That's it. See, I didn't give you anything that difficult. So now when you run this program, oh, it's giving me that crazy error because I removed all the JavaFX stuff. Create a new Java project. Oh, they removed the, okay, I'll add that later on. So after you are done running this, it'll say all data transfer to an HTML file. Now you need to right click on the project and refresh, and you will have an HTML file right there called home.html. And when you double click on it, see the whole gateway's homepage, everything is copied over into your local file. That's dangerous. Think about if you have the entire site map, in a few lines of code, you can grab the entire site and have a local copy of it.
It is really crazy that it's just that like easy to literally recreate it. You know what I mean?
Yep. The only thing is that this is all on the fly, and the links don't work because if you click on any of these links, they will error out because they're all referring to the local. But again, if you grab the entire site, now that's a different deal. In the meanwhile, you guys are catching up with this one. Let me download the JavaFX package.
Man, yellow barns.
Yellow barns.
Good morning, Professor Saad. I apologize for coming in late.
Oh, good morning, Tony. How are you?
I'm all
We
right.
actually are working with one of the examples, the last example we did last time, that was grabbing the source code and displaying it to the local machine versus grabbing the source code and writing to a local file. So we just add to the last week's example, we saved it as Java URL 3. And then we add the buffered writer statement that allowed us to create a file to which we want to write the source code. And instead of displaying the output to the console, we are writing it to that file, and then we are closing. So those are the only 3 lines that we wrote.
All right,
And
cool.
yeah, so let me update the attendance sheet here. So we have Tony. So the only person we're missing is Devin.
I'm here, Saad.
Oh, Devin also arrived. Okay, awesome, cool. So who are we missing? Somebody dropped me. Oh no, actually it was. Okay, so I had it shrunk. That's why it's not showing everybody. Okay, cool. So everybody's here. Awesome. I don't know, when did you arrive, Devin?
I got here like 5 minutes ago. I was kind of late.
Okay. Okay. So did you heard what I just told Tony?
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Okay, cool. You good? You got it? It doesn't bring up the browser when you double click in the file. Oh, you have to refresh. You have to right click, you run it once, right? And refresh. Right, and just a reminder for those of you who get done, as you get done running this one, remember to right click on the project and refresh. Only then the file shows up that you can double click to see that the data gets transferred. Okay, is everybody caught up on Zoom?
Yep.
All good.
Okay, Devin?
No, it's showing an error for the buffered writer output for some reason.
Did you organize your imports?
Oh no.
So any class that shows you an error, that means it's not in the java.lang package, if you wrote it correctly. Did that fix that, Devin? Got it, Devin, or still having errors?
It still shows an error.
Okay, can you share your screen? Let's have a look at your code then. You know, sometimes the little things that we miss generate errors, so when you share your screen, probably we can have a look at it. Maybe you're missing something somewhere.
Sorry, I have to go on to the Zoom on my computer real quick.
Okay,
On right now on the Zoom.
okay. So, can you go over your source code with my source code, and did you make sure that you have no syntax errors? And you wrote everything correctly? And also let me know which line are you getting the error on?
It's on line 20 and 25.
20 and 25, okay. And can you hover over line 20 on your end, and can you let me know what is the error?
Cannot convert from buffered writer to buffered reader.
Okay, so basically, do you have buffered writer on both sides of equals?
Oh, I put buffered reader at the beginning.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, guys, so now let's get to some more programming with Java network programming. So as I told you guys last week that we will be tapping into, or we will be learning about how you can create a local client server application where you will have a server application and then you have a client application and they will be communicating with the data back and forth with each other. So we'll be doing a few examples in that regard. Also, you can use different protocols for communication purpose. You can use TCP protocol, which is transmission control protocol, and also you can use UDP protocol, user datagram protocol. What is the difference between the two protocols? TCP protocol, when you send in the data from one end up to the other end on a network, for every packet, it asks the sender to give me an acknowledgement. Receiver should give the acknowledgement to the sender that I received the packet. So if it did not receive the packet, the sender will then resend the packets. UDP does not ask for any acknowledgement. Okay. Why would you then use UDP? Because it's faster. So what kind of communication you would use UDP for? Probably voice communication, video communication, non-sensitive data communication, where packet acknowledgement is not required. Otherwise, you would use TCP protocol. Okay, so we'll be looking at how you can transfer data from one application to another. We will test it on a local machine, but certainly it could be tested over a network. So to get started, our first class that we will create, we will call this one My Server. Please do not call it server. Okay, because there are some built-in classes that we will be using. We do not want to use the same name as them. So that's why I'm using the word my there. My server. With the public static void main, no Java effects. So what we will be doing is also called socket programming, which is part of Java network programming. Socket. What is a socket? Does anybody knows what is a socket in networking?
I want to say it's sort of like the queue you're sitting in, if that makes sense.
Sockets are a combination of an IP and a port number. That's what basically sockets are. An IP address and a port number. Say again? Exactly. So in order for you to communicate with the machine over a network, you need to know the machine's IP address. So that will help you locate the machine. And then machines have port numbers on which they listen. So that's how they can differentiate between different conversations, like web conversation from email conversation, sending out email from receiving the email. You know, everything is driven by the ports. So then you have to come up with a port number for the conversation, and that port number should not be a one that is already in use. Okay, so those are the couple of things to keep in mind. So try and a catch block is what we will use here. Try catch block. Okay. So we will be using a built-in class called server socket. And we will tell the server socket to read on this port number. Okay, make sure you organize your imports. Otherwise, server socket is not understood by java.lang package. It is part of java.net package. So this is the port number on which server will accept. Okay. Now, the next thing is we need to create an actual socket, which will be based on the server socket to accept. This is where server is waiting to accept client connection. Again, organize your import. Don't run it. We completed the server, but before we write the client, there's no point of running just the server. And then I'll show you how we run this kind of an application on a local computer. It automatically does it, you know. So when you go to organize imports. Give me a green check, Zoom guys, when you're done coding this. Then we will move on to the client. Don't run this yet. We're not done with a complete example. Sparrow, you're done too, right? For now?
Wanted to know what was the end of that last comment.
Oh, STR, that's it. Never reduce STR. Otherwise, you're done, right? Otherwise, you're done with the code?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, okay. So let's right click on the source to create our next class called my client. Oops, my client with a public static void name. Yep.
The server side, Did you put any number? Can you put any number in that, in the parentheses?
Yeah, we didn't put the port number.
Yeah, can you, I'm asking, any.
Oh, yeah. Just so that everybody knows. Yeah, it's a good point Sparrow's asked me about. Can I put any number here? Typically, yes, but we prefer to choose a number over 4,000 because usually the first 4,000 may be used from some other service on the computer. So we just put a higher number up there because the likelihood of it getting used by operating system is very minimal. Because if we use an existing port number, which is already used for another service, then there'll be a problem. Okay. Now, we create a socket object on the client to talk to the server. What was the server? What is the local machine called in networking? If you do not know the IP address, it is also called localhost. Okay. And what is the port number? 6660. And that's the port number that I will use on line number 7. So that the client knows which machine and what port number the server is listening. So client data is received by the server in a data input stream, right? And when the client writes the data, the client will write the data using data output stream. So client is writing using data output stream. The server is receiving data input stream. Now we need to send the data to the server. Flush the data. Close. And make sure that there are no errors, then I'll tell you how to run it.
Did you say you wanted a thumbs up or a check mark?
Yes, yes, please. So that we know, I know that you are done, so I can show you, show everybody the process. So we're waiting for Devin, okay, and Braden. Sparrow, you're done with this one, okay. Just waiting for Devin. Oh. So now go to your server and just hit the start button. Nothing will happen right now. If it asks you allow access, say I want to allow access. That's like, oh, hold a second. Well, not gonna let me do that. Okay, I'm hitting cancel. Hopefully it will still let me run the server. Okay, so server is running. How do I know? It gives me this red square. Everybody see the red square in the bottom right corner? Okay, now go to my client and then hit the run start button again. Do you see the message?
Yeah.
Okay, now how do I know that this message is coming from the server? Check your console. What does it say next to terminated? My server. Okay, so that means first the server ran, then the client ran, the client sent the message over to the server app, which then displayed that this is the message I received from the client. Hello, server. Did everybody get to see that on Zoom as well?
Yeah, for some reason, it's not allowing me to run my server. It doesn't change the window perspective. Do I need to do the run configuration?
No, I mean, like, what you need to do is when you hit server, do you see a little red box in the bottom right corner?
And I'm just supposed to run it from client? I'm
No,
not
no, no,
supposed to
no,
try to
no.
run server?
First run my server.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that and it won't let me start it. I'd start it.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, okay. Let's all
It's
look.
probably something super simple.
Just 1 second, okay? Let me move the Zoom window out of the way. Okay.
So when I go to click run,
Uh-huh.
it just doesn't
Okay.
do anything.
Okay. Where is your console? No. Where is your
Yeah, on the
console?
bottom, right? I don't know.
Maybe it's on the side. Okay, why don't you click the view? Here you go. It is running. Yeah,
Oh,
it is running. Now
fantastic.
go to my client and run that. Just hit the start button. Here you
Oh,
go.
sweet. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Running is just like you were not seeing your console window.
See, I knew it was super simple.
So this is a very, very simple conversation between, by default, it does the TCP client server.
You have multiple clients, right?
You can have multiple client as well. Absolutely, absolutely.
But only one server.
And on one's exactly. Right now, we didn't do that. We just did a simple application for now. Now let's try to do a UDP client server. This was a TCP client server. So let's create a new class called UDP server with a public static void main. Create a server socket. So we use datagram socket, and let me use throws IO exception in the line of the main method. It's the size of my byte array, which will be holding the data coming from the client. And my receiving packet will be a datagram. Oh. Before I go any further, I want to ask you guys one more question. Do you understand what is a packet? Packet is the smallest representation of data that can be transferred over a network at the UDP layer. Because there are different layers of an operating system in communication. So after the packets then gets divided into frames, but that at the lower level. At the UDP level, which is somewhere in the middle, the packets is basically where the data are packed and they're given some kind of information, and then they're forwarded over to the lower layers where it adds the IP addressing to it before it gets rerouted as a frame. So that's why we have a packet, and the kind of a packet is datagram to differentiate from the regular TCP packet. TCP also sends packets. So datagram packet will say that I don't need acknowledgements. As soon as it gets received, that's it. TCP packet will have a little bit like a flag, which will be acknowledgement true or false. So then the acknowledgement will be sent out that I've received the packet. Okay. Everybody follow that?
Yeah, for some reason, I'm having an unhandled exception type of socket
Right.
exception.
Did you add throws IO exception in the line of the
No,
main?
no.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what we're saying is the size of the packet is the length of the byte array, which is 65,000 bytes. And the packet will hold the data that will be inside the receiver. Okay. Now, once we set up the packet, now it's time to actually receive the data. And we receive the data and then we're displaying that. Now exit the server if the client send the code word bye. Because this while true is constantly running. So it's constantly receiving the data. So we will leave the loop, so we'll and then receive equals. And after each conversation, we want to renew the receive and reset it. And we will close the connection. Please make sure that you save and you have no errors. Any errors, sir?
Yeah.
Everybody got it here on Zoom? Oh, Jessica got it, Tony got it, Luke got it, Alec got it, Braden got it, and Devin. Okay, got it. Cool. Now let's create our next class UDP client. So client will be accepting input from the user. So, oops, so that's why we'll be creating a scanner object. Just like the server, we will have a datagram socket. However, the socket will not have a port number. And then remember to add the throw exception. Let me make this throws IO exception. I'll cover the most grounds. So in the line of the main, make sure you add throws IO exception. So we have our datagram socket created. Now we need to know where the server is. So for that, I will use a class called inet address. We also used this class last week. In the inet class, I can call to get my local host information. And this is the array to send the data over. Again, an infinite loop with a terminating condition and a socket that will close outside of the loop. Now, first of all, we will take the scanner object and grab some kind of an input from the user. Then we will take that input and we'll convert it into bytes to put in the buffer, bytes of type bytes, because we can only send in bytes over the network. Then we will use datagram socket or datagram packet on the socket, datagram packet. And what was the port number I used? Oh, 11,000. Okay. 11,000. So basically what I'm saying is I want to send a UDP packet and I want to give data length, IP address of the server, and the server port number. So that's basically are the four values: the data length, the IP of the server, which is localhost, and then the server's port number, so that it knows where the communication will take place. And then once I do this, I will send this datagram packet over. And I need to come up with a break logic. If the user inputs the word by, then terminate the loop. That means no more communication. That's it. So all infinite loops need to have a termination point for them to be valid.
I'm trying to problem solve it, but as I see, my INET address IP equals INET address dot get localhost is telling me I cannot resolve, it cannot be resolved to a type. So it's telling me to change it to INET address. And then it just takes off get localhost.
Okay, go ahead and share your screen. That'll give me a better picture.
Did you define localhost anywhere?
No. Go to the end of that line and start deleting from semicolon all the way to the period. I see the point. Hold on a second. Hit Control Z. Okay, there is no new on that line. I think that's the problem. Because it's not an object. You are basically asking a method to return an object which you're assigning to a local object.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, is everybody caught up now here? How about on Zoom too? Okay, now same way we'll be running it. We will first run our server. And the server will not display anything, but it will show you that it's running because the red square will be red. Then you go to the client and then you hit this start button. The client runs, but nothing happens. Now click in the console. You'll see a blinking cursor, right? That blinking cursor is because of a line number 17, where it is expecting something to come from the client. So here I will type hello from client to server, and it's in green text. Type and hit enter.
And we were supposed to launch the UDP server.
You first launch the UDP server and then you run the UDP client. You want me to run mine again for you?
No, that's exactly how I did it, except I got an error. So we'll see how this goes. We're gonna try it again.
Okay, so notice I received this message. Everybody see that? I received the message here. This is in black color, and it also has a client and an arrow to show you that server received the message from client. Is the server done running? No. So how do you switch back? You see this little monitor in the bottom left corner, a little blue color monitor. Okay, if you click the arrow next to it, it lets you go to the client again. This is how you can switch to multiple applications running. So click on the client one. And then type buy and hit enter. And now it says the client terminating, and it terminates the communication between the client and the server. Okay, got it. Okay. Tony.
I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
So I can run my UDP server.
Hold on a
I
second.
ran this.
Hold it. Hold it. Okay. Can you show me your UDP server first? Okay. Did you run this first?
Yep. And this runs totally fine.
Okay. Can you click on that two gray axes?
I'm sorry.
There are two gray color axes on the same line where your mouse is.
Yep.
Click on that. Okay, click the termination. Looks like something is running. Click the, yep.
That was the.
Yeah, hold on a second. Click the gray axis again. Okay, now everything has come to a stop. Now let's run the server once. Okay, server is running. Now switch to the client. Okay, now run the client. Okay, hold on a second. Address already in use bind. Oh, here you made a mistake. Did you copy pasted the code?
No.
Okay, line number 12. When you set up the datagram socket for client, you do not put a port number there. That's what's
Oh.
giving you an error that the port number that you're using is already in use. Because
So
the
where did
server
you
is
put
doing
your
that.
port number?
You don't put a port number for client because client is not receiving anything, it's only sending.
Oh, so I must have seen you copy paste
Right,
before you
exactly.
deleted the,
Yeah,
okay, I
exactly.
see what you're
Exactly.
saying.
Okay, now save the changes and stop everything by clicking the red X, red box and clicking X's. Okay, now run your server again. And now run your client. Okay, now go down in the console and click and type something, anything, and hit enter. Okay, now that
Cool.
server has received it. Okay, now go back, go to the right-hand side where you see blue monitor. Yeah, click on the arrow next to it and switch back to the client. And then type buy in lowercase and hit enter.
Oh, dude, this, okay, cool. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. So that's basically how we are communicating back and forth between the two groups. Does that make sense to all of you?
Yeah, definitely.
So we are just sending a packet from the client to the server over here. And after we send the packet, we have an if condition to check to see if the packet we send was a buy. If not, we go back and we wait for another input. And we continue with this process till the user enters buy, then we terminate the loop, and that's it. When we terminate the loop, the server, since receives the buy, says, okay, client is terminating, and it also breaks. And since it breaks, everything breaks. And that's how it is. Okay. Let's take a break here. How about that? Right? Let's take a break here till 9:40, and then we will resume at 9:40. Resume the recording, and let's create our server app. Okay, we're going to call this one server radius. Oh, I forgot to do something. Extends application.
Doesn't matter whether the main or the start method
No,
goes first.
no. The sequence of the methods don't matter in Java. They did matter in the good old days back in 1980s, that all the methods that are called should be first and the caller should be towards the end, but not in the modern languages. So the whole purpose of the example that I'm about to do over here with you is that we will ask the client to take an input of radius from server, from user, pass the radius to the server. Server will do the rest of the calculations and will send the answer to the client. So just a simple application to show you that you have two different applications. One only takes the input, one produces the output and sends it back. Okay, so do you guys know what is a text area? text area. It's a multi-line text box. So you can have multiple lines, okay? So we will create a text area object. And we will add the text area to the scene. And then we have our primary state dot set title. This will be my server application for radius. And then primary state dot set scene will be the scene. Just some basic stuff for now. Then I'll share with you how in the world we will be running the logic. Okay. Let's ask our.
Were we supposed to run it? I just have to change my run.
No,
config.
no, we have done.
I'm just
enough.
curious. I'm just curious. I wanted to change the run
Yeah.
config, so I did it anyway.
I thought only George was curious.
How about
I don't know. That's what they told me at the conference. That he's the only one that is curious.
you said Jordan?
I knew
that's
that's what you meant. I knew it. I knew that's what you meant.
Why are you curious? Come on. Okay, so now we need to set up our environment to have the threads, because we will be running this application inside a thread. So we'll be creating a thread that will run on the server, and then we'll have some similar information in the client. So how do you create an unnamed object? Just like, oops, just like this, right? Okay. And then how do you start a thread? Just like that. So you can create a thread object and start it, right? Okay. Now, when you start a thread, which method does the start calls? Which method does the start calls when you're running a thread? See over here? Run. Okay, so you start the thread and the thread will call the run method. Okay, since this is an unnamed thread, we can't really have a run method and make it call it. So instead, what we do is we will use a lambda expression between the two parentheses and write the body And that body will serve as the body of the run method. You're about to see some crazy syntax, right, Tony?
Heck yeah.
So this, whatever I'm writing is basically the implementation of which method? This body from here to here is my run method. And since that is the only method that start calls, the Lambda will do the job for me. Don't worry about IO exception having an error, because it is simply saying that there is nothing in the try that will call me. So when we write that statement, that error will disappear from line 27. Just make sure that your imports are organized. That's about it. And also, the reason I'm stopping here for you to make sure your parentheses and curly braces, everything is balanced, because there are way too many of those.
I was just about to ask, do you care if on the, where we end the try block,
No, it doesn't
can
matter
we put,
as
so
long
can we
as
put catch on the same line and just end that whole thing right there?
you can do that too. That's fine.
Cool.
You can do that too. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to do a server socket, because this will be my server application. And remember, server socket need a port number. So that's my port number there. Let me break this into 2 lines so that you guys can see the whole thing. So make sure that you take the date class from the util package, not the SQL package. So when the server gets started, that's when this run later event will kick in. And again, I'm using a Lambda expression to write the body of the only line of code that I want to add. So when this event kicks in, I want to add to my text area that I created on line 20, that server started at, and I want to display the date and time, or date when the server started. Now, once the server starts, it will start listening to the client. Okay. Start listening to the client. So socket equals to server socket, which we created on line number 28, dot accept. So it will now be waiting for the client to start communicating. What it will do is it will read from client, and then we'll send the output to the client. So using the socket object, it is establishing an input stream. This is very similar to the example we did earlier today, the very first example that we did today, where we established an input stream into a URL connection. Now we are doing an input stream on the socket. And that socket is now feeding my data input stream. So just a little different context in terms of where the data is coming from. Instead of a website, it is now coming from on the socket. Similarly, my output stream is also using the socket to send the data out. So I'm using my socket to bring the data in, and I'm using my socket to send the data out. And just like my previous UDP example, I have an infinite loop that will run forever, and I will have some kind of methodology for termination. Okay. I am waiting over here when everybody catches this far, then only I will move forward. You should have no errors at this point after writing all this code. It's not ready to run yet.
When I added the date, I added the Java util date. Was that the correct
Correct.
package?
Yes, yes. Because the SQL date is only meant for database. So if you're grabbing date from a database, then you would use an SQL package. So give me a green check, the Zoom guys, if you are done with this much code. Again, we're not ready, don't run it. I just want to make sure before I move ahead, you're caught up with this information and no errors. Huh? Well, nothing will happen. Yeah, it's just like we'll have nothing because the client is not there. So Tony, you're still coding?
I believe I'm good.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
I'm set. I just set up the WoW plug. Yep, I'm good
Now
to go.
what we do is we need to grab the input from the client. Okay. Which object did I declare to get the input from client? Which object is responsible for input from client? I even called it input from client. Who did I call input from client? Which line? 37, right? This guy, input from client, is the guy that will bring the data from the client. Okay. Now, what am I doing? I'm calculating the radius, right? Which is a number. So I will declare a variable radius of type double. And I will ask my input from client that when you come bring the data over, I want the data to be of type double. So whatever, because usually when you put data in a text box, it is string. I want to read it as a double. So once I read it in the double, what's the formula for area of a circle? What is the formula for the area of a circle? Pi r squared, right? So math dot pi multiplied by math dot POW radius square. Okay, so POW is for raised to power. So radius square times pi. And then Who is responsible for sending the data back to client? Output to client. Output to client dot write double and then write the area. So far, so good, everybody? Okay.
Yep.
Now, the next thing I want to do is I also want to display to my local server in the text area, whatever got computed. So for that, I will use the same logic, platform.run later logic. But this time, oops. You know what, we're gonna do this. Let me create a code block instead of a single line, code block like this. Create a code block. Because there are multiple lines now, so that's why I'm creating a block. Pen text. Radius received from client. And this is the radius that I received. And then this is the area that I'm calculating and displaying. So I will display to the local client, to the local server as well, the radius that I received and the area that I computed. Just so that the server will also know what's going on. Now that completes the server, but we still need to write the client. Can everybody confirm when they're done? Sir, done? Okay. Okay, so Devin is the only one left right now. Okay. Devin, let me know when you're caught up. Oh, you got it. Okay, cool. Next, let's create a new class called client radius. He'll be a child of Java FX application. And it'll be a launch application. So I'm creating an input and output stream objects that I'll use for communication purpose. I know last time we worked with grid pane, but there is one more pane I want to talk about today, which is called the border pane. In JavaFX, border pane allows you to give 5 regions to your application, and then you can put items in each region. So it's sort of like a software. You know, like for example, if you're looking at the Eclipse environment, you see on the left, in the left pane, this, okay, in the center pane, you see your source code and the console. Currently, you don't have a right pane. You don't have a top pane because what you see at the top is toolbar. It's not part of any of the panes. It's outside of the pane. So it's possible for you to fill in different areas of a pane. You don't have to have all areas filled, but that's pretty much shows you a look and feel of how the border pane works. Okay, so let's try to use, in this example, border pane. So we'll create an object of border pane type. In this object of border pane, we will then add labels. We'll add a text field. We haven't done a nested layout, right? Like nested layout means you have a layout within a layout. We have not done that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. We only had one level of layouts.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so let's also do one more thing here. Let me create another layout. Let me call this one main pane. So this main pane will be my main application. And this pane, the second pane that I created, I will place that pane in one of the 5 regions of that border pane. So you will have a border pane inside a border pane. So that's called the nested layer. So for this inner pane, I will, on the left-hand side, I will add a new label called enter a radius. And then I will add a text field to the center. So we're adding the text area to the center of the main pane, and we will add the other pane to the top of the main pane. Now let me explain one more thing to you. TA is added to the scroll pane because by default, TA does not comes with a scroll bar. And that's common across the board for Java. Instead of creating scroll bar for each scrollable object, Java created a scroll pane. So if you want an object to have a scroll bar, you simply add that object to a scroll pane and it'll have a scroll bar. And then we will be setting our stage and scene. Again, we're not done yet. It's just the preliminary setup of the environment. So add text area to the scroll pane, add scroll pane to the main pane, and add the pane for label text field to the top of the main pane. Set up the stage, add the title, set the scene, and show the stage. Then we need to have our event handling logic. And then we'll have our server socket connection logic. So we'll have two sets of logics left to complete. Let me know when everybody's caught up this far, and then we will move forward with our remaining two items.
I'm getting a few errors, Saad.
Oh, you need help? Oh, someone needed help here. Okay, sorry, I stepped out.
Yeah, it was me.
Yes, Alex.
I got a few errors, not quite sure what's wrong.
Oh, sure. Hold on a second. Let me. Where's my mouse? I see my mouse and now, oh, there it is. Okay, go ahead. Share your screen.
Okay,
1 second.
yeah, something's
Where's
wrong
my
here for sure.
mouse? Behaving. Okay. So. Oh, data output stream.
You gotta change your stage name from
You are
arg
missing,
0.
you're missing semicolon at the end of line 15. That's it.
Where your public
then-
void start stage is,
Oh, yeah.
change your primary stage.
So you see arg0, right? On line 18, change the arg0 to primary stage.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, that's it.
You, thank you.
Mhm. Okey dokey. Devin also caught up?
Could you scroll up just for a second?
Sure.
Okay, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, cool. So now let's get to the event handling piece. So since I did not write the button, therefore I will be writing my event handling on the text field. The text field dot set on action, lambda expression, I will be grabbing the value from a text field, so that's why I have to convert it. Oops. To double. Then send the radius to the server. So that's another logic I need to come up with. Remember, I created some objects at the top, to server and from server for output and input streams, right? So I will now be using to server dot write double and to server dot flush. Then similarly, I need to get the data from the server. So from server, that's my other object. Read double. And then whatever I read from the server, I will be writing that to my text area object. Oh, because E is already in use by line 41. So I'm going to call this one EX, line 53. again, let me know when you guys are done with the event handling piece.
No, that's good.
Oh, you're done. Okay, cool, awesome. Cool.
Getting bottom of the-
Yes. Gotta burn those calories. You know, before COVID, I used to teach all my classes in person. There was no Zoom element.
Yeah.
So I used to move around a lot. Can't do that anymore. And I miss that. Because I don't sit in one place and teach. That's totally against my way of doing things. But that's the right one.
Don't do that, the actual body.
Yeah, it's hard for me to just sit in one. I know some people love to sit in one place and teach.
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, so we have, okay, so we still have three more people to, or four more people to tell me that they're all caught up. So next, oh, Tony, you caught up too? Okay, cool. Now let's go down to the server logic. So what was the port number on which the server is listening? 8,000, right? So when client builds a socket, the client will talk to that server on the local host at port number 8,000. Then we need to instantiate the from server and to server objects on the socket, because they want to be able to listen from, they should be able to listen from server and should be able to send data to the server. So that's why we need those two objects to be instantiated on the socket. So whenever you guys are done coding the try-catch block and make sure that you don't have any errors, you are going to first run the server. The server will come up like this and will tell you that the server started at the following date and time and will wait for the client. Then you will run the client. So you'll have a client application running and you'll have a server application running simultaneously, just like that, as you can see on my screen. Then on the client side, let's say I pass the radius 10, so I type 10 and hit enter. Notice the 10 was received by the server, server computed the area, send the result back to client. Now client says, I want the radius for area 25.55, oh, sorry, area for the radius 25.55. So that's what's happening here. Client sending the data, server doing the computation, sending the output back. And we are doing this on a local computer. Of course, if you have an IP address instead of local host, you will plug in the IP address of the computer. You will run the server on that computer, and then the client from a different computer on the network can join that server.
So I guess I don't understand why we have to change the name of the catch IOE exception. Why did we have to change it to EX?
Oh, right
Because
up,
it's named,
yeah, over here, because we were already using E for the lambda expression. That's
oh,
what,
I see, okay.
okay? So I just copied line 54 down to 64. I didn't change it back to E again. The names don't matter. I just left it as EX. But down below in the second try catch block, it doesn't really matter. Only in the top one it matters because we are already using E for lambda expression. So did everybody get to run this and see how it works?
1 second.
Remember to run your server first, then run your client, then pass the radius in the text box on the client, hit the enter key, and see that the data goes to the server and comes back. Server will display what radius it received and the area, and client will also receive the area.
Alright, so I have it, the server ran, you said then enter radius with the client.
Yeah, yeah. So in the client, in the text box, you put in a radius and hit enter. And for example, right now, let me run again. So I enter like 30 and hit
Oh,
enter.
cool.
This server and client, they both receive the output.
Sweet, works perfect.
Cool, awesome.
Mine says runtime components are missing.
You gotta change your run configurations.
I didn't hear Devin. What was the issue?
I have to change my run configurations. I
Oh, yeah,
forgot.
yeah. You know how to do that, right?
I forgot how to do that. I'm in run configurations.
You need to go to the run configuration and then you pick one of your older, I mean, like one of your older JavaFX application, and then you go to arguments, and then you grab the arguments from that one and go to the arguments on the current one, paste it there and run it. Like we have been doing from last 4 weeks. And then you would have to do it for both applications, for server as well as the client, because they're both JavaFX applications. Got it?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, cool, awesome. Now, let's take this example to the next level, where we can connect multiple clients to the same server, and each client will work independent of the other client. But multiple clients can connect to the same server. So let's create our next class. Let's call this one multi-client server radius. Oops. Multi-client server radius here. So this will extends application. Okay, so this is a new kind of a server which can handle multiple clients. Our previous server could not handle multiple clients. So we have a text area, and then we will declare an integer variable, which will be the number of clients. Initially, it's 0. So I changed the name of my primary of my stage object to primary stage. And I launch the args in the main method. You can bring this code from your previous example. So I'm actually copying some more code from the previous example, if you guys remember this code. Oops. So again, I'm just grabbing some information from our previous example, the previous server. So I'm running a loop in which I'm accepting a socket. Why am I running a loop this time? Versus last server, I ran a loop out later on because here I want to create a socket for each client that keeps coming in. That's why I have a socket inside a loop. In my previous server, notice my socket was outside of the loop because I was only working with one client. But here I want people to continuously join. That's why I'm creating new sockets every time a new person joins in. And every time somebody joins in, I'm just saying that the following client or following client number has joined me. The server will keep track of the number of clients that are joining. Next, I need to find the client information who joined me. So I'm displaying the client's host name, the client's IP address. And then I will start a new server, a new thread for each client that joins in. Again, I'm not done with the code. Run. So instead of coding a local body of a run method, we will create a class with a runnable interface. And that object we will use over here. And that will handle all my sockets and everything for me. So again, I will wait till everybody is done this far. And then we will create our inner class. Oops. Inner class. We're going to call it handle client.
Can you scroll up just a bit? I don't know if I have the correct while. So. Oh, you made a whole. Okay.
Is everybody caught up this far? Devin? And Alec? Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to create this inner class called handle client. And this inner class will take care of all the socket logic for me. So I'm creating a constructor which will receive a socket object. Who will pass in the socket object? The thread. So on line 50, I'll create an instance and I'll pass the socket object. And where is this socket object declared? Right here in my code, in the while loop, the server socket. So that socket is what I will pass to the handle client. And that socket is the one that the handle client will receive in its local socket object. The whole idea of the thread is to be able to do this computation that I was doing anyway before. So I'm now copying all this data from the previous example. And I'll be pasting it right here. In my try catch block.
Could you go back up?
Yeah. Let me go slightly more back to line 52 so that once you guys are done with writing the constructor, make sure you update the new thread. And this is where it will call the handle client and will pass the socket over.
Remember only doing the read from client down to,
Yeah, this
Oh.
whole try catch block. Since I use the same socket number 8,000, I would not have to update my previous client. If I would have used a different socket number over here instead of, where's that, 8,000, then I would have to go and update client radius, but I don't because I'm using the same port number. So all you would have to do whenever you're done coding this is to first run the server, and the server will start running. Then go to the previous client radius and run it. And it will bring up a client and also have the server open. And you will see in the server this time that the server will tell that I have one client connected to me. Okay, and now if you run the client again, this time you will see that the server will tell you that two clients are connected. Now, since both clients are on the same machine, therefore the IP addresses are same, but see over here. Okay, so now, for example, if client number 1 passes a radius, the server literally says, you know, this is a radius to receive, and this is the area computed. Okay, and only the client 1 will receive the output. If client 2 passes something, then only client 2. So it is streamlining. Whoever sends is the only one receives. Don't your routers work on the same principle? So there are multiple devices connected. The device that sends in a request for a access is the only one that receives that website back. Right? So other people don't receive that site. So it's basically, it's all thread based. Every thread is a standalone, independent thread from other threads running concurrently.
Hey, Saad, could you go back to the multi-client server radius page, please?
Which one? Oh, server radius. Okay, cool.
I just want to make sure I have everything. Thanks.
No problem. She's actually you run the server first? Yeah. I think it's probably the missing part of this. Insight. Have multiple clients and just start just 1 second. Yeah, go ahead. Have multiple clients. Yeah, so you run the server, then you run multiple clients, right? And then, yeah, and then see that they're passing data, and that they're the only one receiving back. Was everybody able to do that?
Yep, works perfect.
In the chat, I have just dropped a zip file which holds the source code for last week. In case, for anybody who was not here last week and you do not have the in-class examples from last week. So that's where you can find the entire source code for last week's activities. Because your homework assignment for this week requires the last week's knowledge. So if you go to the Blackboard and look at this week's homework assignment, under Unit 5, and that is pretty much about a multi-threaded application. Remember, last week we did a multi-threaded application where we were adding 1 penny from multiple threads, and we were synchronizing them. So it's on the same lines, but with a slight variation. So I'm asking you to create a without sync and with sync, 2 different solutions, exactly like we did in class, that we did one without sync and then we synced it. Now your question may be, which of the 3 sync approaches should I use? It's up to you. We did 3 different sync approaches. So it's up to you, whichever sync approach you want to use, but you will turn in both source codes, the with source code and without sync source code. And then you have a quiz number 3. And those are the 2 items to work on during the week. And then next week, Friday, under the units, you will be able to see a midterm right here under Unit 5. Right now, I did not make that available yet. Okay, so you'll be able to see that down below, and that will have the problem like homework. It will be like homework problem. And then you will complete that and you will upload per instructions to files and the output screenshots. Any questions, guys?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble locating that last week's stuff.
I just uploaded in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
I just dropped those files in the chat. It's a zip folder called week4.zip. Got it?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, cool. So after today, we will be meeting back on the 21st. And when we are meeting back on the 21st is when we will start to look into JAX, Java API for XML, or Java API for XML parsing JAX or JAX. So that's what we will be focusing on, how Java communicates with XML. If you don't have any more questions for me, then that's all for today, guys.
Have a great weekend, Saad.
You too. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye for now.